I've done a lot of agency DOT reviews and also assessments, and I've made notes. You'll see a date up here, April 2022. I've been working on this particular page for, well, 3 years now. So these are comments that I have made as I've been evaluating workspaces. I didn't want to do a fancy PowerPoint. I wanted to give you a document that was usable. And so the PDF, I've made a PDF of this particular page in OneNote that you can use as a reference. So I'm just going to start talking through these. There's a couple people that will likely be able to answer some questions as I'm going, and I'll try to answer some questions at the end too. We're probably going to go over an hour, so I apologize if I'm getting into your lunchtime, but I think it'll be worth the sacrifice. So let's go through this. Okay, so start out with VBA search directories. And by the way, if you're thinking about leaving early, I got some bonus material at the end. I'm going to just hold that off as a secret. So if you're dealing with macros, like we have macros in the workspace for like the view set, which controls the right-click view control and such. If you're in project-wise, you really need to go ahead and set these like I'm done here. This will go ahead and pull out the extra files that macro needs. And so go ahead and set that. Old school is MSDG and liblist, right, for pointing to our DGN libraries. Well, now we've got extensions for different DG and liblist entries, like for drawing seeds, display styles, element templates. There's a whole bunch more. But the point I'm trying to make here is go ahead and be specific when you're calling out your DGN libraries, and that just makes your workspace more optimized. Now, I will say this, the drawing seeds is kind of a unique one. If you're going to point to your DGN libs for your sheet seed definitions, which is what this is for, and also your MicroStation sheet seeds, you actually have to set both of them for that one. So if you're going to introduce drawing seeds, leave this one in place for your sheet seeds, and that will work well. So that's just from lots of experience. Another one here is for display styles. No reason to just use MSDG and liblist. Go ahead and put that extension on the end to point to your config files that have any customized display styles. Same thing with element templates. Now, I got to warn you when you set these. Once you set one of these, whoops, let me undo that. You will not be able to read element templates using MSDG and liblist. All right. So in other words, if you go into this granularity of the configuration variable, then if you were relying on MSDG and liblist like in another folder to pull element templates, it won't, because once it sees this, then this rules. And that goes with these others as well. So make sure that if you're going to add these extensions, that you do it everywhere in your workspace, your work set, and even at your org civil level to go ahead and do those on. Okay. There was a mistake in an earlier version of the workspace that I made where we had civil default station lock. It was set to true in an earlier workspace. That's supposed to be the number 1, so without the quotes. So go ahead and check that civil default station lock. This variable, civil survey retain survey on copy, is no longer needed. Matter of fact, it is abandoned in the code. So if you still have that, you need to get rid of it. It doesn't do anything, taking up space. When you are setting the civil super elevation rule file, this needs to include the path and the file name. Okay, I see a lot of mistakes on this where it's just pointing to the file name. You have to have both for it to work. All right, so I'm going through these fast, but you can ask me for the PDF file and I'll get it to you. I'm probably gonna have 300 emails in my inbox, Scott. It's all your fault. All right, next one is you can set this MSDGN text editor favorite symbols. What the heck is that, Chuck? Well, when you're in your product and you go to place some text, and you can come over here to your symbols. You can specify the like a shortcut to these symbols, which makes it really easy to find them. And how do you get these over here? Use in your symbols, you just right click on something and you can add that to your favorites. Well, that configuration variable points to an XML file, and that XML file is what stores those. And so that's what we're talking about here. So this is set up in the examples workspace, but I don't see a lot of agencies using that. So it's usually something I have to add. Okay. If you've done any type of item type work, there's a list of item type entries here that you'll want to make sure that those are all enabled. And we have made some changes to these recently. So please go ahead and just check against what we deliver in our examples workspace. So for example, I have this loaded up here in Notepad++. There's going to be a section in here on item types. And you're going to want to make sure if you're starting to work on those, you'll see this item type section that you're following our latest and greatest, okay? We did rename, if you have this item type variable in there called Excel lookup, that's been renamed to item type lookup. So there was a change there a few years back. Okay, sometimes I'll also see where MS Design Seed or MS Design Model Seed, they're not being set to the right file names. And so every time you go to make a new file, I don't know if this has ever happened in your environment, but you have to go like manually browse for the seed file every time, and that's annoying. Typically that happens when these variables are not set to look for the right file name and the right model name within that file. And so if you've had that happen, check these variables. If you have an older workspace and you were just getting going on setting up the civil labeler functionality, you probably used a variable called civil labeler XML file. That XML file has been replaced, and now those label definitions are going to be in the DGN lib, and so you no longer need this variable pointing to that XML file once you get up to your newer versions of ORD. If you want to customize what is shown in the top path of your title, what am I talking about? I'm talking about what's up here, where right now you see, for example, the file name up here. I can customize what this reads up here. There is an entire, actually I clicked the wrong video or wrong link button there, but there's an entire wiki site dedicated to this topic. And so I'm going to pull that up here. It's pretty fascinating. You got to use a little bit of programming knowledge, because it does, I believe, work with VBA, but they give you the VBA. You can go in and tweak it, but there's all different kinds of things that you can see, different things that you can have show up, and you can control the format that it shows up, etc. And so this is an entire website dedicated to what you can show up there in that title bar. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought you might want to see that. I see a lot of problems with civil reports, especially when they're trying to get the reports directory in ProjectWise. You no longer need to include the delivered reports that come with ORD in your workspace, okay? Let me repeat that. You no longer need to deliver the reports that the product delivers in the workspace. We've got some new variables that make all of this handled properly. And so I'm going to go in and show you some different things, different examples here. And so this is kind of like what not to do, where I had them go in and say, I want you to delete all of these reports out of your workspace folder structure because we're going to use the ones that are delivered. And so if we come down here, this is kind of a before, and this is an after. It's actually a different Department of Transportation that I did these on. But this is how you really want to set it up. So you've got this civil report subdirectories where you can put your own, basically your pending or post-pending additional reports. Pay close attention to how I did the equal signs and then the greater than signs, no slash over here. And then this I did for Iowa. And then down here at the bottom, I've got some additional commands, and these do have the slashes. So if you were, for example, to take all of this, right here, this is the way you would get this to work inside of ProjectWise, which is a lot of you're running now in ProjectWise. So you're going to want to take, this particular layout here is a good example, okay? Again, pay attention to the equal signs, the greater than signs, less than signs, and the slashes, and this should get you in a pretty good shape. But essentially, you're going to be making a new folder structure. I think I listed up here like custom. See the word custom here? So this is what the variable would look like in your workspace, and you're pointing to that custom folder, and that's where you'll put your custom style sheets. But there's no reason, notice I'm not even setting civil reports directory because that's going to be taken care of by the product. I'm just using this new civil report subdirectories, pointing to a new folder that I created in my workspace called under Reports Custom. That's where I put my style sheets, and then this right here would be what the configuration would look like, okay? All right, moving on down. These two, I catch this a lot with survey. I have surveyors ask me, well, Chuck, if I've got a survey shot every 100 feet, why am I getting triangles every 10 feet when I triangulate my survey data? Well, it's because they haven't set this civil stroke tolerance. Yeah, and so therefore it's going back to the default configuration variable for horizontal geometry, okay? And so, which is normally, by the way, set to like 10 or something. Well, if you set this to like a huge number, then it will only triangulate to the actual survey shot. So it won't add additional shots along that survey break line. And then you can do the same thing if you don't want it to add those additional triangles along your radius of your arcs. You can go ahead and look at my notes here as well. Do some testing with this one though. This one's a little bit tricky to get it to work right. The last time I tried it, I was able to set it to 0, but I think there was one release that actually caused a failure when you're trying to map surveys. So make sure you test this one. But talk to your surveyors. Like I said, if they don't want extra triangles inserted, this is kind of the approach that you want to take. All right, I know plotting is an issue. You're going to want to make sure that these configuration variables are in your environment. Go ahead and test it, of course, but the beauty of these is it speeds things up. Now, with Open Roads and MicroStation 2024, they have implemented, if you haven't heard, multi-thread processing for plotting, and so that's going to help a lot. But you also going to want to set these configuration variables, this MS plot max worker task and civil enable quick print server equals 1. You can read the comments there. It handles the processing a little bit quicker. On the civil side, it's not going to load all the civil stuff that you normally would when it goes to plot, so it makes it faster as well. Okay. One of my favorite configuration variables in this entire document is right here, MS level display format. When we have levels in our environment and we turn on, for example, the description column, we can see, that we have this description field. Well, with that configuration variable set, when you hover over any level anywhere, and I don't have it turned on here, but you'll see like the next to the last line here says the level name. Well, in parentheses, it will put the level's description. Okay, it'll put the level's description, and so you're going to want to take advantage of that. I put it in a lot of the agencies, and they absolutely love it. I've never had anybody come back and say, let's turn that back off. So this is telling it to put that description in parentheses after the level name itself. Okay, this configuration variable is not pointing to a valid model name. Make sure, when you're setting up your sheet seeds environment, look at the model name inside the file that you're pointing to and make sure the spelling is the same, okay? So make sure that, this is all, good. It looks the same there. So spelling counts. Okay, these configuration variables are required for subsurface utilities, subsurface drainage and utilities. So just make sure that those are set. That is looking for a path and a file name, not just a file name, okay? Path and a file name. If you want to do something crazy with your cross sections, you can, do upside down cross sections, reverse cross sections. These two right here kind of work together. So there are, I know the Army Corps does some stuff. I think sometimes you'll see rail projects where they'll do things backwards, at least in my view. So you can reverse those, but you do have to enable these variables. Okay. All right. This is a variable that is supported, but I'm not real sure it works. So there's when you're setting your margins in your configuration to control, where your cross sections, start out, there is a variable called civil cross section bottom margin. You can set a value to it, but I'm not confident that it does exactly what is intended. So just use that one with a grain of salt. I'm not positive about that one, but just to show you, those are usually down at the bottom of our delivered config files. I'll show you that section. which is, yeah, about right here. Yeah, so you'll see this one, and you'll see it's in here, but I'm not really sure you're going to get see the effects of it. It's something I think that I logged, but just remember I said that cross-section bottom margin, you can still manually move it where you want it to start and stop, and that'll be fine. But I'm not sure this actually has any impact right now. Okay, these are fairly new. And this shows horizontal geometry information in the profile view. And so basically what I'm talking about is these numbers right here. You'll see in the profile view, like the horizontal length of tangent and the radius values. And it kind of goes along with the color banding here. So like this represents a horizontal curve, and it tells you the length and the radius of that curve. And so this is a tangent section. It tells you the length of the tangent. Really what that's doing is in your view attributes, I believe, under horizontal geometry info, it's turning on these toggles by default. It's turning on those toggles by default. All right, so that's what those are for. And those are typically not going to be in your older workspaces because we introduced those not too long ago. If you ever wanted to make a new seed file for a new cell library, I see this variable very seldomly set in a workspace, so you're going to want to do that. There is a new variable for item types in this JSON file, which I had no idea what the heck that was. And so I had to ask Dan Ahern, what is a JSON anyway? And so he gave a definition here that basically what that does. But if you're doing item type work, this needs to be in your environment, okay? All right, so if you are doing anything with your component center where you wanted to create a cell library when you're downloading components, it's not something a whole lot of people have gotten into, but this is the configuration that you would want to do if you're using component center. Make sure those are set. Plotting. Boy, do I get a lot of questions on plotting. I have just taken an excerpt here from a particular agency. I don't even remember which one I borrowed this from. But, you know, we have, of all the different categories of configuration variables, I think plotting is at the top of the list. There's a lot that you can do with plotting. You know, where, you know, for example, you know, updating fields, and I actually have an issue I'm looking at on that right now. But take a look at this example. Are you taking advantage of plotting configuration variables? You know, what's my default pin table, or where are my pin tables, for example? You know, if you're constantly finding yourself having to go back and pick things all the time when you go to plot something, then you probably don't have all the configuration variables set properly in your workspace. And so you can look at the documentation. There's a link in here, you know, that takes you out there to all of your plotting configuration variables, and you'll see there's just a couple out here, right? So you're going to want to take advantage of this. You know, scan through them, see are there things that can make your lives easier. But there's a lot out there in your plotting world, and I just, for some reason, these just, you know, a lot of people aren't setting these, and so take a look at that. All right, this is if you want it to be a license cop. MS idle timeout, you can tell it when to close the product down. This is not going to work with ProjectWise well, because it's going to prompt you and say, hey, do you want to, you know, check this in or whatever. But this is something some of the DOTs will set because people will just leave open roads running all weekend, and then they'll get charged for it and they're not happy. So that's what that one's about. All right. A lot of people don't know about this one. This civil cross-section enable drafting tools equals 1. If there's anybody from the old Geopack camp, basically what it does is it gives us the old Geopack tools where we can issue strategic points on our cross-sections to do things. You know, like offset and elevation, we can issue a slope line or whatever. If you set this variable, then it'll give you this drop-down in the tool settings and give you a whole bunch of new options here. Okay, so if you didn't know about that, you want to go ahead and turn that on, okay? If you are doing anything with item types, I know there's some people that like are doing Premier Scholar type training and they're building expressions. There is a configuration variable called civil property expression equals 1, What that does is that allows you to go into your properties panel and right click on something, and it will build the expression for you. And then you can just paste the expression right into your item type property field. And so this saves you a whole lot of headache. And so, but you got to enable this variable to get this right click option in your properties panel. Okay. So that's a really important one. Okay, so civil content management DG and lib list. If you are, I talked about this earlier, if you're working on getting rid of your civil label or XML file and importing that XML file to DG and libs for your civil label definitions, well, you need to make sure this variable is pointing to that DG and lib where you're going to put your civil label definitions so that it can find your civil label definitions. And this variable does that. Okay, and so just make sure you get that done. Okay, next one up, civil tool settings, omit item types equals true, and civil quick properties, omit item types. This is basically just calming down your quick properties to where your quick properties is not going to say a whole bunch of stuff. So like when I select something, I'm talking about this quick properties panel. If you have a bunch of item types, it could fill up your whole screen. And so typically we'll suggest setting these to true so that your quick properties won't become massive. Okay, just a little tip there. This is a question. Are configuration variables set at the workspace and work set levels to append cell libraries? Okay, and so are they set to append cell libraries? A lot of times we'll see that cells looked for at the organization level or the configuration set level, but then there's no MS cell or MS cell list in the workspace or the work set configuration file. So somebody's like, well, what if I wanted to add a cell library just for this one project? Where do I put it? And they don't have write access to the organizational level. Well, you don't have these configuration variables set at the workspace or work set levels, they can't add a cell library. So make sure that you're doing that. Okay. Why would you want to include a drainage and utility cell library if you're just running MicroStation? Okay, that's just a little bit extra horsepower and we don't need to do that. So a suggestion would be you could make a new subfolder called DU for drainage and utilities, put your cell library in there, right? And then you can use this if statement and basically say, hey, if I'm running Open Roads Designer or Open Site or even Open Bridge, then go ahead and execute these two commands, and then I got an endiv. But if I'm not, in other words, I'm running MicroStation, then don't execute these, and that cell library won't be loaded for that user. And so you may have certain cells for your MicroStation user that you don't want your Open Roads Designer users to see. You can use this same type of approach. But all we're doing is here, we're looking at the engine name. We're saying if the engine name is Open Roads Designer, and then this double pipe is an or, engine name equals Open Site Designer, or engine name equals Open Bridge Modeler, then go ahead and do this and this and this. Now I'm telling it to do cells, right? But you could do a whole lot of other things here too if you wanted to omit certain things. So just food for thought. Okay, this is a recommendation on display styles. I showed this earlier about MSDG and liblist and then adding the display styles extension. If you do that, this is very important. Do not miss this line. MSDG and liblist styles equals, and then you got to go back to the system root, DG and lib, draw comp, en star.dg and lib. If not, you will break all of your detailing symbol styles. They won't be there. So if you're going to do this, make sure you add this in there, just like that. You don't have to change any of the syntax. You can copy and paste, okay? But I would recommend taking this approach to pointing to your display styles. Now, you may end up copying this DG and lib and customizing it in your workspace. And if that's the case, then you would want to put in this specific path here if you went in and made copies of that and did your own thing, which some agencies do that. Okay, iTwins and iModels. We're working through some issues right now getting materials to show up. If any of you have worked with that, I'm sure you have my frustrations with you as well. Set this variable. That's not going to fix it all. They have found some things going on that they're working on, and they're actually making some good progress on getting materials in the iModels. But what this does is it forces your materials to be copied into your file, and it makes the materials go with that iModel a little bit easier. So I would go ahead and turn that on if you're publishing. Okay. Okay. For those of you, I had this question come up the other day. One of the DOTs said, Chuck, we're getting ready to go to 2024. I don't necessarily want my users to get prompted every time they open a file and it upgrades. Is there a way that we can shut down that prompt? Yes, there is. Right here. Civil upgrade prompt off equals 1. And that way, if you go from 2023 to 2024, they start opening files, they will not be prompted. It will automatically update that to the latest schema. That's the good news. The bad news is if somebody's still running 2023, guess what? They're not going to open that file anymore. So just be, it's got its pros and cons, right? These are some admin entries here that you may be interested in. Civil standards import export equals 1, and civil annotations import export visible equals 1. And look, I'm not going to recommend that you start importing features from one to another. This is old school now. But what it does is it gives you the option here for importing and exporting. Don't do this unless you really know what you're doing. You've been warned. But that's the variable that enables that. And then you can also set this one on your annotations. You can, and I'll make the same comment on this one, but you can, when you go in to look at annotations, you can have a button here for import export. It used to be by default on, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get annotation definitions that are the same name with different suffixes, and it gets messy. And so we took that out. So you basically have to set this admin variable to get that back if that's something that you intentionally want to do. If you really want to lock things down, use station restrict manage configuration equals 1, then they can't get to the configuration variables in the product. So you're probably, if you're an admin person, you're going to really like this. If you're a user that does your own tinkering, you're really not going to like this, and you're not going to be happy that I showed this. So I'm just being real. But this will lock things down. You can't get into the configuration manager if you want to do that. This one right here, we had a defect a while back where you went to place a cell and you had to come back after lunch before you could actually place it. It had to do with like the properties panel being open and such. If you set this variable, that problem will never return. Okay, now I think they were supposed to work this into the code where it's automatic, but if you're still seeing that, if you're still seeing really slow cell placement, I would grab this guy and put that in. I think it'll make your lives a lot better. You'll be real popular when you do that too. Okay, so this goes back to that example earlier where I talked about the DG and liblist drawing seeds, and I'm kind of giving a breakdown and showing where you show both of the variables, and you have two types of sheet seeds. You have one sheet seed that is for ORD, right? So it's basically following an alignment, but you also have detail sheet seeds that are microstation based. Okay, notice the equal sign, the strategic use of an equal sign here. This is canceling out the sheet seeds that are delivered out of the box with microstation. So if you're used to seeing some metric entries on the details, this will get rid of that, okay? But then you'll need to go ahead then and set the drawing seeds, and then I appended then to like the microstation detail sheet seed DG and libs as well. Okay, so this will kind of clean things up for you a little bit. Okay, font config file. This is something I've started pushing recently. When I look at customizing workspaces, right? And you go to your editor and you have to wait and you wait and you wait, and then you've got every stinking file that is installed on your computer plus everything that comes with MicroStation, everything in the workspace. The users will, I promise you, never use this many fonts. Okay, usually it's Arial or engineering series fonts, sometimes your SignCAD fonts. There is a way, right, using this font config file, you can control what is shown in that list, okay? And so MS font config file, If the examples workspace doesn't have one, I can send you one if you're interested in controlling your list. But I am starting to use this in a lot of the DOTs, and they absolutely love it. It makes you drop down really fast, and it only shows the fonts that you want them to use. Now, what about an older drawing that is using an old resource font? What does it do to that? Absolutely nothing, because that font's going to be copied into your DGN. All this is doing is controlling the list that is displayed to the user. All it is doing is controlling the list here that is displayed to the user. It has no effect on the files, or if you had an old font in there or whatever. It's basically restricting what fonts they can use to build a text note, if you will. And so it's just trimming down this drop down. That's all it does. Okay, so don't think we're going to break fonts that are in an old file. But that file is a text file. It's a little bit quirky, but is actually documented very well. At the very top of the file, you'll set a default font, and then at the very bottom of the file, if you ask for an example, I can send it. But it will show you kind of, hey, include these fonts and then hide the rest of them. That's basically the gist of it. There's 2 blocks of text at the very end that you'll want to tweak. All right. Okay. Is anybody on the call ever used Activate Reference? Okay, I know that's a stupid question. Don't do it. And you're probably thinking, what? Activate Reference is going to corrupt files. It's not if, it's when. And it may corrupt it today, and you won't notice it until 3 weeks from now when your court order no longer processes. I'm telling you, we're working on this. We just figured this out not too long ago. But do not use Activate Reference. Set these 2 configuration variables, and it makes Activate Reference go away. You do not want to use that. Trust me. If your users complain, say, if you use Activate Reference, you are going to corrupt your file. That's all you have to say. It does take a little bit longer. You can use Exchange if you want to, but don't use Activate. Set these, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You will get a little pop-up message down in the message center that's annoying. It is what it is. I can't make the message go away, but you want to go ahead and fire these off, okay? This is a brand new variable. I told you everybody's going to learn something today. Brand new. Use station place note, activate text style of active dimension style equals 1. Basically, if you set this, basically to use the active text style of the selected dimension style. If you don't set it, then it won't automatically set the active text style. And that used to be the behavior a long time ago. And then I had users start complaining about, why isn't it setting my active text style? I was like, well, it does. And they said, no, it doesn't. I said, well, it used to. And they said, well, now it doesn't. And so I complained, and they put in this new configuration variable to act like it used to act. And so if you don't have this in your environment, I would strongly suggest that you put it in there. Okay? All right, so here's going to be my little gripe on roles. Roles are being utilized. This is acceptable, but they can be temperamental. This is a hint. Working with them in the past, one thing I noticed is when a configuration variable is introduced in a roles configuration file, it must first be set to an equal sign to reset the variable. If this is not done, when reviewing the variables in ORD, you might notice the same variable set to the same path several times. I promise you, you will. Be sure and review carefully all variables used in the roles configuration file and make sure they are not repeated and resolved properly. So use that equal sign at the top of your list, and that'll make your duplicates go away, okay, if you're using roles. Okay, do not, and let me repeat, do not use this variable in anything earlier than ORD 2025, which is not released yet. Do not set this. It will cause crashes all over the product, okay? All over the product. All right, so if you have MS Cursor prompt in there, get rid of it after you get off this call. It is big problems. So it is fixed in 2025. There was a question, I'm not really monitoring the chat much, but this one stuck out. All of these variables I'm showing, with the exception of this one, can be used in any version of ORD. So that was a really important question. So, but this one right here is, this variable has been around a long time, and we're seeing a lot of crash reports on this, okay? All right, so now we're going to get down to the bonus material. I got a few minutes left. This is important. This is where we talked about, if you wanted to do the upgrade, upgrade prompt off, we already talked about that. But there is another variable that goes with this, and I've added the commentary here. You can, for somebody that's just looking at files and you never want them to have write access, you can also tell it to open the file read only. If you wanted to mess with your buddy, at lunchtime, you could go sneak that into their UPF real quick, and then just listen to their reactions when they get back from lunch. So you didn't hear that from me. All right. So very, 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 let me say this one more time, important. You need to check your DGN libs for corruption that have your master features. I promise you, a lot of you will have this and not know it. There's a YouTube out there on it, but let me go in and show you what I'm talking about. In your master features file, we'll just go do it here on the examples workspace. Don't panic, this is not a big deal, but you need to fix it. So let me show you real quickly what we have to do for this one. Basically, you're going to notice a problem with survey. All right, so you go to map survey and things are just flat out not going on to the right level, and you don't know why. You've looked at your features, everything looks right. You go to map your survey and something's on a different level, and it just makes no sense. There's a problem with upgrading some of those older DGN libs, and it messes up the roles category. All you have to do, and the video walks you through this step by step, but you just, on your key in, you type in civil, display, browser, and that's a hidden key in, but you can't do anything with it other than just view things. You can't make any changes or mess anything up with this key in command, but it scans all of your features, and it looks for things that are problems. Now, look, it's funny because we're delivering something with a defect. So there you go. We can report that later. But what I'm focused on is this role category. And you have to turn on this object checking icon. If this role is red, you need to fix that. Okay, so if you go to the role category and it's showing red, the video will tell you exactly what to do. And basically, you'll see on that second line in that flyover, that MicroStation element ID, it's got a number. 2231 in this case. You're going to have to write down all of the red entries that have those element ID numbers, and you're going to delete those element IDs. Trust me, spelling counts. Triple check the number that you're reading and the number that you're deleting, and make sure you do this on a backup file, okay? Because if you make a mistake, you can't go back and fix it. So just a caution on that. But you all need to check your features files that have all of your survey features. Follow this video and go through to that, okay? Very important. Another very important entry, if you are going to Open Roads Designer 2024, which I know a lot of you are in process, the viewset.mvba file that we deliver has been updated. And here's the issue, right? It also needs to be pushed back to older workspaces, because if not, every time you go to do the right-click view control and you do your view arrangements, you will crash if you have the older macro. All right, that is this file right here, viewset.mvba. Now, the updated file that we deliver with 2024 is backwards compatible. Okay, so you can go take that viewset.mvba back to ORD 2022, 2021. It doesn't matter. But what happens is people will copy this file and build a whole bunch of different workspaces for different clients. And so they got 50 copies of this file that are the older version. Well, you've got to go back to all of your workspace environments and update this file with those changes once you go to Open Roads 2024. There were some security changes that we had to change in here that are required. And if you don't have the updated file, you will crash using 2024 on your workspace. So this is a very, very urgent note. If you haven't heard this, but for the first time, make that file update, okay? I have just posted a brand new video series. This is going to become a very, very hot topic. Converting a survey foot workspace to an international foot workspace, okay? There is now a video library out there that deals with this, that walks you through it step by step. You do not have to be a workspace guru to do this, but I've got several videos out here. The hardest part of the whole thing is the civil cells. I'm just going to warn you, this is not pretty. But I've walked through, I've done one from beginning to end and explained what you have to look for. But there is an entire video library series out there to help you with those upgrades, because trust me, it's coming. Once they get those new coordinate systems posted, the agencies are going to be all over that. So just be forewarned. Another brand new video series. If you have ever used the 3D custom line styles that we produce, okay, the 3D custom line styles that we produce, then there's basically, you're going to have to be able to find those resource files, okay? So here's where you can download those resource files. But there's also a new video series out there that will get you to how to make those changes. And I think it's out there on the technical support group's site. I don't have a link for that. I just showed the resources here. But there's a new video series out there that shows you how to recolorize those custom line styles. That's about a 2-day project. So if you're going to take that one on because you have a different color table, just be prepared. It's going to take a bit. But I walk you through that step by step. Oddly enough, I get this question a lot. How do I mask my title blocks in my cross-section sheets and my profile sheets? Well, there's a video for that. So give you some good tips on how you can do title block masking with Open Roads, and so you can go watch that YouTube video there. Workspace function keys. I'm amazed at how many people do not know the power of the delivered workspace function keys that are out there. For example, did you know Shift, I think it's Shift F1, will take an existing terrain model and vertically exaggerate it so that you can find spikes really easily visually, where you can rotate and vertically exaggerate. So watch this video series about the workspace function keys that we deliver. You're going to be surprised at what you learn. I think you'll find that very useful. Okay. If you are doing any type of workspace development, this should be like at the very top of your bookmarks. This is a fairly new video library series. You'll see we already have over 11,000 views. Anything you want to do or learn about in terms of workspace development is probably going to be in here. There's not 27 videos. There's probably 300 to 400 videos. These are just categorized. Like drainage and utilities is one of the biggest video libraries, but you'll see all of the different videos out here and the topics. And so if you're not familiar with that site, you definitely want to become familiar with that one. Okay, 2 more to go. Contour smoothing and element templates. I got a call from the Army Corps saying, Chuck, you know, we're displaying our terrain models and I'm watching my screen paint every time I pan, and it's killing me. In your element templates for your terrains, set your smoothing factor to none. It is not worth it to get a little bit smoother contour to have to wait 10 minutes for that thing to redraw itself. So check your element templates where you're setting up for your terrains, and make sure that smoothing factor in your contours, just set it to none. Trust me, you will be very happy with that change, okay? So this one will really get you. All right, last but not least, if you are one that gets to work on configuration files from time to time, if you've ever done a white background and black text, it makes it very difficult to distinguish between comments, configuration variables, you know, your operands. You know, I have basically built, with the help of a couple of other of my friends, a syntax highlighter file for Notepad++ that works in the dark mode. Notepad++ is a free program. And in my zip file that I can send out, it will have the XML file that you can import to Notepad++ and a README file with directions on how to set this up. It's very simple. You'll just, you know, follow the instructions in the README file. You'll import the XML file. And then when you open a file with a CFG extension, it will now look like this, which is a whole lot easier than, you know, white background and black text. So if you're not familiar with Notepad++, you can download it. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's free. It's like an open source thing, I think. But a lot of us here at Bentley use Notepad++. If you're an Ultra Edit person, I also have a syntax highlighter file for Ultra Edit. That will not be in the zip file, but you can send me a separate email and I can provide you the syntax highlighter for Ultra Edit as well. Okay, Scott, I am totally out of oxygen. How are we doing on questions?
You were flying through all that, my man.
Sir.
Fast and furious with the configs today. Yeah, there's a bunch of questions that are still in the Q&A here. I tried to, Sonia and I were kind of going through. A lot of them were just asking for the actual list that you were showing. So
Okay.
You're probably going to get a bunch of emails asking
That's okay.
for the list.
I'm tough. I can handle
right.
it.
Just so everybody's aware, we did try to have that added to the platform, and the administrator failed to do that. So that's why it wasn't there. Otherwise, it would have been there available for you guys. So instead, you'll have to just email Chuck directly, chuck.lawson.com.
Let me. I'll type my email here so everybody can see the spelling. I could give you my boss's email, but she'd probably get mad at me. Sonia's on the call, so I won't do that, Sonia. So chuck.lawson@bailey.com. Yeah. chuck.lawson@bailey.com. I'll just prepare it's just a really small zip file. So It's got that XML and a README file for Notepad++, and then it's got the PDF of what I just showed you.
Yeah, I apologize for that, guys. We did send it to the Coffee Corner administrator. I think it was last week, and they just failed to post it for whatever reason. So otherwise, it would have been there.
But you're going to have to send me an email because I'm sorry, Sonia. Go ahead.
I really don't mind sending out the stuff for you, but I need the zip file first.
Yeah, I'll get it. It's no big deal. I've already got a whole bunch in my inbox now, so it'll be real fast. Right. Thank you though for that, Sonia. And so, yeah, send me an email. I'll send you the stuff. And if we don't get to your question, feel free to go ahead and send me the question. I'll try to answer it. If you think of something later, that's fine too. So it might take me a while to get back to you, but yeah, we can do that. Is there any questions, Scott, that I need to address to the group?
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, there was a lot about the versions that these configs were for. I think you addressed that one earlier, and then just some random ones here. If you just go down to there was one about specifically about ProjectWise. Is there an idle timeout variable that will work with ProjectWise?
No, there's not. I've been down that path before, and so you can go ahead and set it, but it's just going to annoy the user, right? It's because it's going to pop up and say, hey, you ready to check this? And at least maybe you can make them get the hint. It won't break anything, right? But yeah, there isn't one for ProjectWise.
And another one related to ProjectWise, MS_ design seed M. How does that work in ProjectWise? Are you familiar with that one?
There's really no difference. I mean, the way that I'm not a ProjectWise person, but basically we just take the configuration that we set run locally, and then there's a wiki out there. Some talks about how to make a managed workspace, and in the one config there's I forget the phrasing, not one config, but there's a way that you can basically just have a master pointer that goes to your general configurations, but your design seed, your variables, your microstation variables, your civil variables don't really change, right? Whatever you set locally is what you'd set also in ProjectWise, but I'm not the right person to answer those types of questions. So you need to get an expert in that field to ask those.
All right, what else? I got people asking about the recording. I mentioned this in the beginning when we started. All these sessions are recorded. If you ever want to access the recording, just use that same link that you received to get here and join us today. Get the recording there, and you can also go down to the connection client, go into the learning tab, and click on demand, and you can see all the coffee corners that we've done over the past several months. Okay, so all these sessions are being recorded as well. So let's go through here. I got someone asking about, I work for a DOT, but our disciplines have their own sub workspaces under our main DOT one. Can the path name in the title bar be customized for individual departments, or is it restricted to your organization level?
I'm not real sure on that. That's why I gave you that wiki. I have not dug into that. If you have a background in VBA, best I can tell, there's quite a bit that you can do with this. but you're going to probably have to have somebody with a little bit of VBA knowledge to go in and do this. But you can see here in this list, there's all kinds of different combinations that you can do in that path. But I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I just haven't dug into it myself. But this wiki is a really good resource as I scan through it.
Yeah,
I apologize, I can't give you a direct answer on that one.
Another one here about, is there any variable or setting that will allow more precision in the display of the profile elevation number in the profile view, the vertical display on that left side?
You're talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about the dynamic profile view.
Yeah,
There is a
profile model
bug.
view window.
Yeah, there's a bug in ORD 2024 that messed that up. That is fixed in 2024 update 1. I just learned about that a couple weeks ago. So that dynamic profile view it's messed up in 2024. I'm hoping that's what you're asking about. It's supposed to be like a dynamic number that as you dig in deeper, it gets more decimals. So if you go to 24 update 1, that should come back to what you've been used to seeing in the past. Hopefully that answers your question, but there is no configuration variable that controls that. It is all done programmatically.
We have one here, just seeing the option to limit configuration management and had a related question. Is there a way to define what is listed in the manage configuration listing?
Yeah, actually there is. There is, I don't know if I included it in here or not, but you can, there's one in there about, do I list all of the configuration variables or just some of them? And let me open up a file here real quick that can talk about that. Let me go find that real quick. I've got like my own little custom file that I always put in all of my Bentley products. I just make one and copy and paste it. It's just got some of my own shortcuts in there. But there's one in here that basically, it's like use station display all config variables, and so I don't think you would really want to set that necessarily for your users. So I think I've got it in here. This is I typically use Ultra Edit, but I think it's like display all config variables or something like that. I can't remember the exact syntax, and I don't see it.
Travis has put it in the Q&A for us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
underbar use. It's there. You can just copy it.
Okay. And so it's underbar use station. Yeah,
sorry.
That's it. So you'll see it there in the Q&A. I'll type it out here so everybody can see it. It is, what I'm saying is you don't want to set this for your typical users, right? And it's display all config vars. And it's CFG, I believe this is right. And you do not, like normally if you want to display all of them, like all the microstate hidden config variables, you'd set that to 1. I think my spelling is correct. But for normal users, you do not really want to set that. Okay, so that is the only control that you have. Okay, that is the only control that you have, is that one right there. It'll shut down all the use station ones. What else you got, Scott? Throw another one at me. We've got a couple minutes left.
Let's see here. Put it on the list. All right. Oh, geez, there's still a lot. Let's see here. Oh, someone was asking about, they noticed you had the CL symbol for the font Arial. Is that available in the new ORD, or is it available for 1012?
Okay, so that's a really good question, actually. There's a trick, right? Even though we're using engineering vert, right? Or I'm sorry, even though we had Arial here, the symbol is, if you'll see, it's engineering vert. Okay, so I can place that, right? I can place that symbol, and you'll see it over here on the left. Let me do this on the right, and then I can say space, and then I can type, Arial text, right? Whatever, and you can't really tell a difference between the fonts. Okay, so I think that you'll see that you can combine, the engineering vert symbols with an Arial font, and your labels will be just fine. Okay, so that's what a trick that I use with some of the DOTs that use Arial fonts. I'll include the engineering vert just to cover the symbols. But no, those Arial, which is delivered with Windows, they're not going to have your engineering symbols. Okay, good question.
And someone's asking about the disable activate reference. They say they use that, but however, is there a way to make the flag that shows up near the message center go away?
Nope. I've tried that yesterday. I looked and researched every way I could. I looked at the no echo command. I shouldn't say you can't. There is a no echo command that can be used with VBA, but you're going to have to be really smart, a lot smarter than me to figure all that out. But I did do some research, and I could not solve it. So I'm not aware of any way to make the pop-up message go away. But hey, it's just a warning to the users, and they're only going to ask you what this is one time. So that's the good news.
Does that activate reference problem extend to OpenBridge as well?
I would say probably, because they can still process things. I wouldn't risk it. I absolutely would not risk it.